In the middle of the post-apocalyptic wasteland of Australia lies the green place of many mothers where Furiosa and Valkyrie are picking peaches, realizing that raiders have arrived at their sanctuary. Furiosa promptly asks Valkyrie to hide while she discreetly damages their motorcycles. However, she is soon caught by the raiders, causing her to whistle an alarm back to her village, where her mother Mary hears her call for help. While she rushes towards the woods with several other villagers, the raiders capture Furiosa as a prize among the other bounty they have managed to collect. Mary frantically follows the raiders out of the woods and takes a couple of them down. To ensure that the existence of the green place continues to remain a secret, Mary then rides one of the motorcycles ahead to take down the rest of them. Just as Furiosa gains consciousness, the raiders suddenly face what they think is a sniper attack, but is actually a determined Mary. Unknown to the raiders, Furiosa sabotages the motorcycle she is on, while her mother smartly switches parts of her motorcycle with another to proceed faster. Furiosa's interference ensures that by evening the raiders run into trouble with the motorcycle, leading to a fight amongst themselves as they hear the fast-approaching Thunderbike. While they remind themselves that they will be handsomely rewarded by their leader, Dementus, if they prove the existence of the green place using Furiosa, she tries to take the opportunity to escape. However, she gets recaptured soon enough. The next morning, Mary finds a favorable vantage point to attack the raiders before they reach their camp. She manages to take down one of them, leaving just the one with Furiosa, who eventually manages to reach the camp. While he insists on speaking directly to Dementus about the location of the place of abundance that he discovered, Mary makes her way closer to the camp. Smartly getting off the motorcycle on the other hand, Furiosa manages to strangle her captor. Now the only one with the ability to give away the location of the green place, Furiosa is presented before Dementus. When she refuses to speak, however, Dementus asks her to get some rest and promises to take her home the next day by following the tracks. Later that night, amidst a strong snowstorm, Mary breaks into the camp disguised as one of the raiders. On their way out of the camp together, however, they are followed by Dementus and his crew. To allow her daughter a chance to escape, Mary lets her go ahead on her own to protect the green place. The seed of a peach acts as a parting gift between them, but Furiosa stops a distance away, unwilling to leave her mother behind to face the danger of Dementus's wrath. Unfortunately, Mary is soon surrounded by the raiders. When Furiosa rushes to help her, she is instead forced to witness her mother being crucified while still refusing to give away the green place's location. Subsequently, Dementus gains a prisoner in Furiosa who, over time, witnesses several of his horde's activities across the wasteland. One such day while traveling, the history man suggests that she make herself invaluable to Dementus to ensure her safety. While she ignores him then, she begins with the study of astronavigation later that night, not for Dementus but to be able to someday find her way back home to the green place. During the horde's pursuit of the green place the next morning, they learn about the Citadel, which is also apparently a place of abundance. Changing course towards the Citadel then, the horde storms across the wasteland. Once there, the history man announces Dementus's arrival and his intention to lay siege on the Citadel. Dementus, in turn, appeals to the population of the Citadel to give up their leaders for a chance for a better living. However, the warlord of the Citadel, Immortan Joe, challenges Dementus to a duel with one of his warriors called the Warboys. After plenty of scrutiny to find one who seems most unlikely to defeat Dementus, when one of the Warboys is chosen, he willingly sacrifices his life in a show of loyalty. Scrotus and Rictus, sons of Joe, then rally the rest of the Warboys into battle with Dementus and his horde. Witnessing the Citadel's might, however, Dementus saves Furiosa from capture and soon flees with the remainder of his crew. Quickly working on an alternate plan, Dementus then decides to take over the control of Gastown, the oil refinery that the Citadel depends on for its supply of gasoline. From amongst his allies, Dementus gets a few members of Octobus's Mortifier biker gang to disguise themselves as warboys before approaching Gastown. When it seems that gaining entry would be difficult, he ends up setting them on fire to make their sacrifice seem real. Easily gaining access to Gastown then, Dementus's horde is eventually able to establish authority over the place. However, this also results in Dementus losing Octobus as an ally. Following Gastown's takeover, Dementus is soon summoned to the Citadel under the pretense of a negotiation while Joe intends to have him eliminated. Dementus comes prepared, though, with the threat of blowing up Gastown if he and his team are unable to return safely. Noticing Furiosa just then, Joe asks for her to stay at the Citadel to eventually become one of their wives. Additionally, in return for agreeing to increasing food and water supplies, Joe also demands for the organic mechanic, Dementus's personal physician. Once Dementus leaves, Furiosa joins the several wives where they are kept hidden and locked in a vault. With time, she notices Rictus taking an interest in her, and to stall his wayward advances, Furiosa chops off her hair one day and begins wearing it as a wig instead. Her forward thinking works in her favor when she is forcefully carried out of bed one night by him. While he curiously observes the star map she has tattooed on her arm, she refuses to tell him anything about it. With the help of her wig, she manages to run away from him and seemingly disappears. As time passes, she pretends to be a mute boy and works among the ranks of Joe's men. Becoming the Dogman, she continues to garner favor to eventually be a part of the group that will be building a war rig. Overseen by Scrotus and Rictus, the rig, when completed, is to be a heavily armed supply tanker which will be able to withstand attacks by raiders while it traverses across the wasteland. It is during the building of the rig that Furiosa comes across its commander, the Praetorian Jack, known for being the most successful during runs on the Fury Road. During its first run upon completion, the rig comes across a group of bikers which is promptly identified as the now rogue Mortifiers. While the rig's crew and convoy, including the Warboys, deal with the attack, they remain unknown to the fact that Furiosa has stowed away on the rig, along with a motorcycle intending to escape. However, her motorcycle is soon destroyed while the rig faces multiple engine issues. Such is the accuracy of the Mortifier's attack that they rapidly work through the rig's crew before planting an explosive on the rig to take it out. Still hidden from Jack, Furiosa disables the explosive just in time before moving on to fix the engine. When she gets to the front of the rig and fixes its busted radiator, Jack finally notices her. While the rest of the crew continues to get annihilated by the Mortifiers, Furiosa assists Jack and skillfully launches a counterattack. Once the threat is eliminated, she tries to threaten Jack to gain access to the rig to finally be able to go home to the Green Place. However, she is easily tricked off the rig instead. Completely on her own for the first time in a very long time, Furiosa attempts to reorient herself towards the Green Place just when Jack gets back. Devoid of a crew, he offers to train her with skills she will need to eventually escape the Citadel, in return for her help in rebuilding his crew. Becoming his aide then, Furiosa is later promoted to being Praetorian herself. At the Bullet Farm one day, its leader speaks to Jack about the extreme mismanagement of Gastown and demands a war meeting with Joe for a solution. On their way back to the Citadel later, Jack hands over a weapon to Furiosa and informs her that since she has fulfilled her promise, she is now free to go on her way. Asking her for a few days to make all the arrangements, he assures her of enough food and water for her travels. Arriving at Gastown the next day, Jack and Furiosa witness its dire situation. While Dementus doesn't even recognize Furiosa, he appeals to Jack for a meeting with the warlords, including Joe, the People Eater, and the leader of the Bullet Farm in the next 3 days. As a fight breaks out between the population of Gastown and the convoy of the rig composed of the Warboys, Dementus then offers to lead the rig out to safety. Furiosa carefully follows Dementus, but her left shoulder is injured just before making their way out. Back at the Citadel, an enraged Joe instructs Jack and Furiosa to head to the Bullet Farm the next morning to bring back as much ammunition as possible to enable them to take back Gastown. Later that evening, Jack tends to Furiosa's wound before asking her about the star map on her arm. Telling her about his parents who were loyal soldiers till the end, he then promises to help her find her way back home, and she agrees to let him accompany her. As per their plan to escape together, they stop the rig the next day on their way to the Bullet Farm, and instruct the Warboys to load some food and water along with a couple of motorcycles onto another vehicle. Jack then gets Furiosa to drive this supply vehicle instead of the rig. Following the switch, the convoy eventually arrives at the Bullet Farm with Furiosa bringing up the rear. Sensing just in time that something is wrong, Jack raises the alarm, letting Furiosa quickly escape while the rig remains trapped inside. Realizing then that the Bullet Farm has been ambushed by Dementus and his horde, Jack signals for Furiosa to escape on her own. Not one to leave him behind, however, Furiosa decides to help him instead. Rushing inside, she quickly spots Dementus while Jack drives the rig ahead. However, before she can shoot Dementus, he shoots at her instead, causing her to be buried in debris. Quickly getting back up, she notices Jack in danger of being dropped down a ridge. Grabbing a motorcycle, she rushes over to him and pulls him back up, thereby saving his life. Hurrying to the exit, both of them escape the Bullet Farm while Dementus prepares to chase them. Consulting her star map, Furiosa puts together a plan to get to the Green Place, even as Dementus eventually catches up with his horde close behind. Attacking when he gets close enough, Jack is shot while Furiosa injures her left arm. Having crashed into their vehicle, Dementus then has both of them dragged out. With his plans of taking over the Bullet Farm to eventually gain control of the Citadel thwarted because of Jack and Furiosa, Dementus demands revenge. Tying Furiosa up by her injured left arm, he forces her to watch as Jack is tortured to his eventual end. By evening, when aboard, Dementus instructs everyone to return home. He is shocked to see that he is left with no prisoner. Having cut off her left arm and sacrificed her star map pointing home, Furiosa has somehow managed to nick a motorcycle which she rides back towards the Citadel. Spotted from afar, she is taken in by the population of the Citadel. Waking up later, she escapes the confines and instead identifies herself as the Praetorian Furiosa to be allowed into the Citadel. When she reports Dementus's plans of storming the Citadel to Joe, he decides to let Dementus think that they are leaving the Citadel undefended by heading to Gastown. Believing that he can now easily gain control over the citadel, Dementus leads his horde there. Meanwhile, the People Eater signals for his men to turn back toward the citadel, allowing them the opportunity to trap Dementus and his horde. During the ensuing 40-day wasteland war, the citadel crushes the horde, while Furiosa makes a prosthetic arm for herself. Chopping off her hair again, she then demands a vehicle to head to the battlefield. While Rictus and Scrotus have a silly argument, Furiosa then takes their vehicle ahead to pursue Dementus, which leads to the History Man identifying her as the fifth rider of the apocalypse, known to be the Darkest Angel. While Dementus desperately flees to try and escape being captured, Furiosa catches up to him and takes down a couple of his remaining men. He manages to fool Furiosa by switching bikes with a crew member and splitting up to go in another direction, but she hurriedly backtracks and deduces the way he went. Pursued through the vast desert of the wasteland then, Dementus eventually pretends to surrender to Furiosa, effectively subduing him despite his instinct to hurt her. She asks if he remembers that he was responsible for her mother's cruel end 15 years ago. It enrages her to know that he doesn't really care about the way he completely uprooted her life. However, her need for revenge is something that he understands quite well, since even his family was also unfairly taken from him, which ultimately led to him being who he is. When he finally recognizes her, he tries convincing her of the similarities between them. Striving to be better than he could ever be, however, Furiosa captures him and takes him back to the citadel, where he serves as the soil and nutrients of a peach tree that she plants with the seed that Mary left her with. Dividing the tree's first fruit among the 5 wives, Furiosa subsequently hides them on a rig the night before a supply run, much like she had once hidden there herself to escape the citadel.